What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Halving Report podcast with myself, your host, Brad Mines. The price of Bitcoin is approximately $41,000 with about 740 days left until the next Bitcoin halving. There is so much hype around the Bitcoin conference, we tend to forget about some of the other niche crypto communities that are out there. One of these communities is the Monero community. Just recently, on April 7th, the Monerotopia event occurred alongside the Bitcoin conference. Monerotopia's speaker and second-time guest on the Halving Report is here today to catch up with us and report on the event. Let's get to it with Sardar. Welcome to episode 62, Sardar. How are you doing?
I'm good, Brad. How are you doing?
I'm very well,
thank you. It's been about a year since we spoke.
Yeah, I was going to say that actually. It's been almost a year exactly since you were on the Halving Report with me, and I'm going to refer folks back to that episode 48 if they want a little bit more details about your background. That episode is still up for those that maybe want to get a little bit of background before we dive into our chat today. But you just came back from the Monerotopia Conference, is that correct?
I did. I just got back less than a week ago.
Right. Yeah. I wanted to ask you, I wanted to ask you firstly, how was the conference? What was it like there?
Sorry, just give me a sec. I'm about to feel something in my throat.
Oh yeah, for sure. I was just
the conference was great. It was the first one, so the size was a small size, and you have a niche sort of group of people that would come to Monero, the privacy enthusiasts, coders, programmers, software developers, and people like me. So it was an interesting crowd. I didn't get to meet as many people as I would have hoped to, because I was presenting, and B, it was, you remember the last year when I went to Bitcoin, I was in Mexico for about a month, so I had enough time to get over my jet lag, because I come from the other side of the world. Traveling itself is, it takes its toll on you. And each year it just kind of gets more difficult to deal with the time difference. So I didn't have that time this time. I got there a few days before the conference, so I was kind of still mentally dealing with the jet lag and the time difference. But I was also a little bit not stressed, but I guess you could say I was kind of worried about doing the talk right. And then that was once I'm done with that, I was like, yeah, I look forward to hanging out and meeting people. So I got a few hours to really just hang out with people. But I didn't hang out the whole day at the conference. I went there in the morning, then I came back to my room, and then I went like an hour before I had to go up. It was like that, but it was a good conference. Very, very nicely done by Doug and Sunita. So much effort. Everybody came together to get everybody put their hands together, and everybody was hands-on basically, and volunteers, and with a lot of support. I think it went really well, smoothly. It was good.
Awesome. Yeah, I feel like the Monero community, there's a lot of folks that maybe don't want their identity known, so going to a Monero conference kind of seems for some people in that community, it might be counterintuitive for them to go and show their face. Meanwhile, they want that anonymity anyways, right? So it seems like but I do appreciate the folks that are public figures, and that's why I like talking to you and Doug, because you are what I consider Monero public figures. So it's good. It's good.
Yeah, that there aren't that many of us, right? Who come out openly with our identities and talk about Monero. I think it's a good thing to have a mix of both. I definitely feel like the programmers and the people who contribute to the protocol should be anonymous. I think that's a good thing. But people like me, all I do is talk about Monero, so it doesn't really matter, I think. But yeah, no, what I wanted to say was I met people at the conference who were like, oh, I'm so-and-so. So they're an Anon, and we follow each other, and I'm familiar with their posts and stuff. And I'll be like, oh, okay, I know that sort of like an what do you call it? Like an
anime?
Yeah. They'll go with those profile pictures, and they're like, oh, I'm so-and-so. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I know you. So I saw people like that. So
I
yeah, it
don't
was good.
I don't recognize you, but I recognize your anime.
Yes, but now, I would see their face, like, and speak to them face to face, like I'm talking to you, but like in person.
Right.
And I'd be like, okay, so that's you.
Yeah.
But then again, they become an anon as soon as they're online again. So
Of course. Oh, yes. So you said a few words there, correct? At the conference.
yes.
What kind of, or which points did you touch upon? Like, what kind of message did you want to drive home?
So the title, the subject of my talk that I was given to speak about was Monero as an investment. So approaching it from a financial angle, from its position in an investor portfolio. And so much has happened since I last spoke to you. I quit my job, I started my company, like a lot has happened in just 11 to 12 months. So I am now full-time dedicating to, preparing portfolios for clients, and like I'm a full-time crypto person. And so when I was given the topic to approach Monero from an investment angle, that was interesting because I do that anyway. My mind is constantly thinking about what are the best investment opportunities within the crypto space. And then when I had this topic at hand, it was so it was coming up with why an investor, it doesn't matter if they're an institutional investor, like a large investor, or a small personal, portfolio, you or me, an individual investor. But so why they would be interested in something like Monero. So then I put together what Monero's function is in the crypto space. Obviously, I put together like a macro sort of background first with everything that's going on in the world and why digital P2P cash is needed. Something that actually is used to transact as digital cash, and why that becomes an important part of anybody's portfolio given the world that we're living in. The background that if you want, if you're up for it, I'll just take you through the slides and show you what I talked about. But this was a summary of it.
Yeah, sure. Can you pull up the slides during the recording?
Yeah, I could.
Yeah.
I could do a screen share. Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Okay.
Just
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
if you want to throw a couple up there just to see what it's like. So Monero as an investment was pretty much your focus there.
That was the theme.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the exact title of my presentation was Monero Cornerstone of the 2020s Portfolio.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you kind of, I do want to dive into Neel Capital as well. And, just for the basic first time listener, if you could explain, what is Neel Capital and kind of what you do with your clients, what you do with the cryptocurrencies that your portfolio or that your company manages, and how much of that is Monero. Is that something that's you disclose with your company, or?
No, so I cannot really talk about my clients or what I do for them, but my clients know how I feel about Monero. So for me, that's a passive investment that you should have for the long term. So what I do is more active management. So I'll build a portfolio for a client and actively manage it. So not, like a day trading type strategy, but more active management in the sense with the movements of the market. So yeah,
it's individually tailored then, right? Not just a blanket investment for everybody that comes into Neel Capital. Each one is tailored to.
Each one is individually tailored to what they want. So if a client, for example, comes to me and says, I already have exposure to crypto, that would tell me, we'd obviously go into a detailed conversation about what they are exposed to, and I wouldn't get into those things. So and then, so for example, if a client comes to me and says, I have Bitcoin and I have Ethereum and I have this and that, so what I want to do is build a DeFi portfolio. So then I'll, focus on that. So it just depends. But yeah, I think the focus right now for my company is the DeFi area, and a lot of the staking opportunities that you have with proof of stake coins. Something like Monero, I would just tell them to hold it. And I mean, eventually when I start taking profits and, returning it back to them, then I could convert it into Monero. But at the moment, it's something that I just let them know that this is a coin you don't even need to think about, and you could just hold it on your own.
So
and
speaking
I can
of,
show you how to do that.
yeah, absolutely. I don't do a lot of staking, but I just started staking Crow with crypto.com. Are you familiar at all?
Okay, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you familiar?
Yeah.
Okay. I think it was like, I didn't do like I think I put $5,000 or Canadian, so 4,000 US. And I just did like the 180 lock-in. They give you 10%. Give you 10% on that, plus you get a credit card that's coming in the mail. And I guess I'm gonna preload it. I haven't really got to that part yet, but I guess you preload it with Crow and then you spend it and you get 3% back. So I'm staking and I'm getting these Visa rewards soon. But the card looks pretty badass. So that's what I have coming in the mail for me right now.
Oh, that's exciting. I got the same card. So one of these CRO cards, and you stake the amount that they tell you, and then you get these rewards. And it's a debit card, so you load it. You can load it with fiat, or you can load. So basically, to spend it, you would have to spend fiat. So, but what it allows you to do is there's a certain number of cryptocurrencies that directly convert into fiat. So if you have CRO sitting on your credit card, sort of your debit card account, or your Visa account, it pays in Canadian dollars when you go to the store and buy something. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Wow. And then you get cash back.
Right. But that's paid in Crow, right? Like, yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, it seems pretty cool. Another way to stack crypto, whether I leave it all in Crow or convert it at some point, that's another discussion. But yeah, that's kind of my excitement lately. I just finished this book, Block Size Wars, which is pretty cool. I wanted to tell you about too. I don't know if you can see it because the screen's kind of, there we go. You can kind of see it there.
There, now I see it. Yeah.
The
battle for control of Bitcoin's protocol.
Yes, exactly. I'm not gonna lie, it's made me a little bit more of a maxi after reading. It's a great piece of Bitcoin history, especially for folks like myself and you who came in after that whole war went down, because we weren't there every single day to kind of see what happened. And just the way they, with all the different characters and a lot of Bitcoin OGs and influential corporations involved with it. It's some pretty interesting book I just finished. And I got a couple more lined up here. I got the Book of Satoshi, which is just all his compiled writings here, pretty much. And
I think that book has a foreword by Jeff Warwick.
Does it?
Just look. Maybe.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Yeah. Okay.
You're familiar?
Yeah, I've read that book.
Oh, have
a long time ago when I first got into crypto.
Oh, yeah. Really? Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I haven't read this one yet.
But not in its physical version. I downloaded it.
Oh yeah.
Dollar Vigilante.
Yeah. I like, do you listen to it? Audiobooks?
No, I just read it on PDF or whatever.
Okay. Okay, yeah. That's probably the cheaper way to do it. I actually had the author send me an autographed version of it. I reached out to him on Twitter.
Oh, look at you.
Phil Champagne.
Nice.
He says, "Dear Brad, love the name The Halving Report. It'll be good for the next 120 years. Enjoy the read, Phil Champagne."
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and then I got
nice. I love what you've done with the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much.
Like with your hat and the, like the pullover and the look over there. It's very digital looking. I like it.
Yeah, well, I was able to get
the Bitcoin sign at the back.
Oh, of course, you got to have the Bitcoin sign in there. Yeah, I've actually got a couple contractors on board now that help me with the digital art and some of the editing as well. it just became too much with preparing for interviews and editing and doing everything. And I was able to find people that do it relatively cheap. So I got some people on board with me, which is pretty exciting. And then I recently just got this book as well, The Seventh Property. I don't know if you can see that. I don't know if you know that one or not, by Eric Yates.
No, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, I just got these ones in the mail actually, because like I said, I reached out to them on Twitter and they gave me a few I got autographed copies there. But yeah, so cool. Yeah, I've been diving really deep into it lately, just doing lots of reading. The Quadriga, about the Quadriga exchange. It's a Canadian exchange that went down in 2018. The owner of it mysteriously died in India. He's like 30 years old. You got to look up this story. Netflix just came out with a new documentary on it. I think it's called The Crypto King or something. But he basically died mysteriously. He did have Crohn's disease, and then he died mysteriously when he was in India. But the only other person that was there with him was his wife at the time. And so I just read the book that everyone thinks she's in on it, right? But it really looks like this fellow died. But yeah, the Quadriga exchange that went down in 2018, big Canadian exchange. It was the biggest one at the time. And
so when you say it went down, did the funds get stolen, or what happened with it?
So after they did like all the crypto forensics on where Jerry Cotton was the owner of the company, what he was doing with the funds, there was no clear line of his personal and business. So he was just moving funds from Quadriga to other exchanges. It looks like he was trading with it, trying to make more money off of it. And he was just kind of put out fires of people. If someone wanted money to withdraw, he would withdraw them. But a lot of people would keep their money in the exchange, which would allow him to move it around and play with it a little bit. But I mean, he had a lease for a private jet. They had a big yacht. I mean, they were definitely living the luxurious lifestyle. And then 215, I think it was $215 million of value at the time anyway, had disappeared when he died, because they couldn't find the cold storage. He was supposed to have a dead man switch that sent his wife an email with these passwords. It never came. She's still harassed to this day. She doesn't really live a public life because everyone thinks that she's in on it and took the money. And Decrypt has wrote an article on it too. And it's like, it seems like a 75% chance that he actually did die. I think, in my opinion, if I had money that I had lost, maybe I would have thought differently. But no, it seems pretty legit that he did die. Her story does seem genuine. But yeah, that's kind of what I've been up to. Just been diving into these Bitcoin books lately, but back to Neel Capital. You're saying like how you kind of focused on the macro. You try to hope for investors to realize the macro cycle. You talk a little bit about the Bitcoin halving on your website. I was wondering if you can maybe just describe your strategy around the halving for us.
Yeah, so the idea that I had for Neel Capital was I didn't want to, well, at least, this is the first time I've started a company. So I thought I will have annual returns. So I'll distribute profits to my clients every year. And second, I'm gonna hold their funds for 4 years. I thought it will go along, or this is how it's structured. Like clients come in now and we position them, and annual profits are paid out every year after commissions, so my fees. And then at the end of the cycle, which I'm considering will go on till about 2025 mid or towards the second half of 2025, which is the post-halving cycle. So halving is supposed to be March 2024, something like that. And the year following that is kind of like this upcycle, if it continues the previous trend, Bitcoin. And at that stage, when the whole market kind of surges, then I would wrap up the operation and return everybody's funds and take a break then, So basically my company is structured on a 4-year timeline. So I'll be receiving funds all the way till December 2024, and returning them in the follow, like at the end of 2025. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. But so then are you going to collect investment for the next halving after that? Like say 2028? Are you going to kind of do the same thing or kind of just reevaluate at the time?
I don't know yet.
Yeah.
I don't know yet. I don't have any plans to.
Mhm.
Right now, it's just a 4-year. The company is gonna. It's not a going concern forever. So I think it's just going to be a 4-year company, and then at the end of 4 years, we'll just give everybody's funds back, or at least that's what I'm thinking right now, and see what happens. So for now, that's the plan. At the end of 2025 is when we wrap up.
And where did the name Neel Capital come from?
Neel is my older son's name.
Okay.
Yeah.
How are your sons doing? I was going to ask you how are your boys doing?
They're doing fine. So
Okay.
my older son had a stem cell treatment in India in February. So yeah, that was pretty interesting. We want him to walk, he doesn't walk yet. And we want him to get stronger and to be able to do some stuff on his own. So this was basically like the last hope, So what they do is they take, it's an incredible, it's an incredible process. And one of the very, very, very few doctors that I actually trust in the world who does this procedure. So what they do is they take, the largest bone, the thigh bone, this hip bone in the body, they go into that bone, they take out the bone marrow, and the marrow contains stem cells. So obviously you're from your own body, from the patient's own body, and that's a perfect match, right? If they take out stem cells from my body to treat me, then you don't need another sort of like a match or anything. So that's a perfect match when it's done with the patient's own stem cells. So yeah, so that's what they do. And then while the patient is kind of asleep, they separate the stem cells from the plasma and the blood and everything, and they inject those cells into the spine, which then travels up to the brain and regenerates parts of the brain that are damaged. So because my son has had seizures for 9 years, epilepsy, there's quite a bit of brain damage, and they do the scans, they do the MRI and the PT scans that show you the areas of damage. So when we go for the next round, because there's going to be several of them, we're just going to do this, the brain scans again, the MRI and the PT scans. And the PT scans are interesting because they inject dye into your body when they do the scan. So you end up seeing on the printout the picture of the brain, and the parts in green are the areas that are functioning correctly, and the parts in blue, and the darker the blue gets, are the parts that are not functioning correctly. So if it's lighter blue, it's still okay. If it's very, very dark blue, it's untreatable. So we're just identifying areas that are sort of light blue and that can be sort of revived, So my son has quite a bit of brain damage, my older son. And so what we're doing is, this is the first one, and we're going to keep doing them every 6 months until we start seeing some improvement. And I think there should be. The doctor said that he's going to be fine, like over time. Fine in the sense, I don't know if he'll ever be normal, like functioning normally, but he should be able to eventually, become independent, at least within the home. And that's really, a lot for us. Like that would be a big deal. But yeah, so I'm happy like we did that. It was a lot of stress. And it took a lot out of me from Jan till March. I was busy with all of this. But he's in good hands. My mom looks after him. And my younger son is good. So personally in my life, we're moving to Dubai. My husband's already working in UAE, and my younger son and I are still here in Oman, but we'll be moving, I think, soon, as soon as we can. And we went and identified a school for him, like a good school. And yeah, just gonna shift our life to another city, like a bigger city here in the region. Um, Dubai is also crypto friendly. It's turning out to be a place that accepts crypto entrepreneurs and stuff like that. So I think it should be interesting to be based over there. But
Yeah,
that's what's new in my life.
yeah, no, sounds like you've had a lot on your plate, that's for sure. And moving to Dubai, you spent time in Dubai previously, haven't you?
I lived there for 3 or 4 months one time when I was preparing for a course. And then my sister lived there for 10 years. So I've always visited as a kid. It's like a 4-hour drive from where I live, where I am right now. So I've been going there. It's just, and I've seen how it changed. It used to be nothing. Oman used to be a lot more developed back in the 80s and early 90s. But then all of a sudden it took about 10 to 15 years where Dubai just went boom like that. And it's unstoppable now. There's a lot of good stuff happening there. And, I'm not a big city person per se. I'd rather be like in a small little beach town somewhere and just live a very quiet, laid back life, and go to the cities when I really feel like to visit. And this is going to be a big city, lifestyle. But I think there are ways to kind of still be laid back, like live a quiet, peaceful life in a corner. And I'm probably going to end up doing something like that because that's just who I am.
Yeah. I definitely resonate with you there, and just wanting to live that quiet Zen life and get away. Yeah. Wait, have you been up to Canada before?
Yeah, I did. I traveled around the northeast of Canada back in 2000.
Okay.
2000, yeah. So it's like 22 years ago.
Oh wow.
I was visiting an aunt that lives in Ottawa. So I was in Georgia. I was studying there, and I flew to Buffalo, and my friend from school who was studying in Buffalo, we crossed the border together, and he dropped me off in Toronto, and or was it by Niagara Falls, somewhere there. And I took, I think, a train to, I don't know if it was a train or a bus, but I made my way to Ottawa, and then just hung out with my aunt for about 10 days, I think it was. And with her, we visited all around Ottawa, and we went to Montreal, and that's about it.
So I'm not sure you heard what's been happening in Canada lately in regard to cryptocurrency, but there's the potential conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, has been talking about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. He's announced that he would take off all capital gains taxes when it comes to crypto donations, not crypto gains, but if you're to donate money. And he actually went and visited this small Mediterranean cuisine restaurant called Tahini's.
Yeah, heard of it.
Yeah, so Tahini's is kind of big on Twitter and TikTok. You'll see back in the day, Michael Saylor was wearing the Tahini's hat when the price went down as a joke, sort of like the McDonald's, when people put the McDonald's hats on their heads. So this company Tahini's is expanding to like 8 or 12 or 15 restaurants now around Ontario, Canada. And what they did in 2020 was move the majority of their Bitcoin or their business reserves into Bitcoin, and they've been obviously very successful through that. So this potential conservative leader will probably be going up against Justin Trudeau in a couple of years when the federal election happens. I'm not sure if you've seen any of that, but it's kind of an interesting thing. So I just actually had the owner of Tahini's restaurant on the podcast. I think it was last episode, actually. Yeah. So
nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he sat down. He sat down with Pierre Poilievre, the conservative leadership guy, and then just a couple of days later, I was able to sit down with Ali is his name, is the name of the guy behind the Bitcoin reserves in Tahini's restaurant anyway, and a co-founder of the restaurant. But some interesting things happening here. No one else is
very
really
interesting.
Yeah, no other parties really come out and talked about cryptocurrencies or Bitcoin yet, and he's kind of the first one that has been talking about it. and he blames all the inflation on Trudeau, of course, calls it just inflation. So it should be interesting. It'd be cool. I'm just excited for this conversation to come to the forefront of politics in Canada. So some excitement there. And did you see? Sorry, go ahead.
Do you believe that inflation is something that is caused by politicians? What's your view on that?
I think it's. I think the biggest factor is the printing of money. So but I don't think, like, I get that, the Liberal government here has printed a lot of money. I think the Conservatives would have had to do the same thing if they were in office. Maybe they wouldn't have printed as much, but I'm sure they would have, like they have in the past. So it's hard to blame it on one person. I don't really agree with that. And now they got this campaign going that, they're going to reverse the carbon tax. There's a carbon tax here. So they say that's going to, they're going to reduce inflation by doing that, which I don't think that's going to happen. I think inflation is here and there's no really going back. There's no putting the money back into the printer, right? So I think that's the biggest cause of it. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with you. Inflation is something that comes from the central bank and its policies. Now, how much of a role the politicians or the government, the current, government in power has to do with that, I'm not sure, but there's really not, I don't see there's a lot that any politician could do to stop whatever's happening from happening. So yeah, blaming a politician, I know I know that a lot of people are talking against Trudeau. I was too, but that was more related to the trucker protest and how he dealt with that whole situation. But yeah, I don't think inflation can be stopped by a politician. I don't think left or right or conservative or liberal has much to do with it. It's just the central bank's policy. Inflation is, and I talked about this in my presentation, inflation is a feature, not a bug. And, the analogy I used was 2 bowls of soup, because I knew that at the Monero conference, we'd have mainly developers and, technical people. And then I sat for a few days wondering, how could I explain inflation in a simple way? So then I racked my brain for a little bit, and then I said, hey, you have these 2 bowls of soup. In one bowl, the first bowl, you have a soup that's thick and creamy, but it's a liquid soup. And the second bowl, you have a bowl that's got veggies in it. So like, imagine a whole bunch of carrots, chunks of carrot, for example, it's a carrot soup, but it's got chunky carrots in it. And both the bowls have a jug full of water or 2 jugs of water that are pouring, trickling water into each bowl. Well, the bowl that has the liquid soup, the first bowl, no matter how thick and creamy that soup is, eventually it gets completely diluted with water and ultimately spills over. And it starts spilling over and spilling over. And like that nutritious soup that it used to be isn't that nutritious anymore. There's not that much benefit you can get out of that, because most of that value, that nutrition and that nutritional content is spilling over. But in the other one, you have the water pouring in and you've got chunks of carrots in it. And you see that the liquid in that soup, which was actually much lesser than the liquid in this soup, because this was all liquid, you had a little bit of liquid here. Well, that liquid sort of gets diluted with the water and spills out, but those chunks of veggies, they remain, right? So then I was trying to get them to think about, one soup is basically your savings in the form of hard assets, and the other one is your savings in the form of fiat. And there's this gigantic bowl where millions and millions and millions of bowls like yours are sitting, and that gigantic bowl then collects all of the soup that's spilling over from millions of bowls, and that is all the cantillionaires that suck up all the value that you saved, right, with the money printing. So just imagine little bowls of soup, individuals, you and me, saving, our life savings, and then imagine like this gigantic bowl of soup that's collecting everything that's spilling over from those. That's basically how they live. That's how the wealth gap just keeps growing bigger and bigger. So I don't know if that is an easy way to follow inflation, but I think it resonated with people there. And I got some good feedback in the sense, it's simple to understand.
Yeah, no,
So,
it's a really good analogy, and it breaks it down into something simple that the average person that doesn't really think about finance can kind of picture in their head. And no, it's a good teaching strategy. Let's move over to something else that let's go to something contemporary. What's, like you said earlier, like so much has happened in the past like 10 or 11 months, just with you and with the world in general. What in the world of crypto, kind of what kind of has been the biggest things that have been standing out to you in the past year or so? Like, is there anything that happened that maybe you didn't expect to happen? Companies moving over into Bitcoin. Has the adoption been slower than you think?
No, I think it's been good. I think, people would say I'm always bashing Bitcoin online on Twitter, but it's not bashing it. The problem is that I like a coin that, competes with it. So, but I like Bitcoin. I think it's a great thing and it's needed. So the more the adoption of Bitcoin, that's always a good thing for everybody in crypto, because that's just the penetration of crypto in the world. So obviously I actually loved hearing the news about El Salvador, becoming so crypto friendly. Then I like seeing, I think in the last year, quite a bit has happened actually. A lot of countries that have become crypto friendly, like Portugal came on the scene all of a sudden. I don't think it was there before last year. So that happened. Dubai has taken a pretty, UAE has taken a pretty good crypto friendly stance. So I'm always excited about no capital gains tax. And I was ready to, as you know, last when I spoke to you, I was ready to move to some place that was it's just not necessarily crypto friendly, but also not crypto hostile. So find a middle ground sort of where I could be peaceful and away from a lot of the COVID drama. And I think find that sweet spot, I guess, for the kids as well, for my son, my younger one. But since then, so over the last year, you had the El Salvador news, which was good. You had the Portugal news, that was good. You had UAE really, really opening up. I think a lot of the GCC countries, the Gulf Cooperation Council, this region, they're opening up. So Oman, for example, the country I live in, has issued or floated a tender, looking for a law firm to set up their whole regulatory procedure and policy with regard to digital assets. So they're looking to get into digital assets, regulate them and stuff. I don't expect most of these countries to have capital gains taxes anyway, on crypto, because they don't have them on stocks. In the last year, also, India has finally, with its, India has been fighting with crypto for so long. Oh, we're banning it, we're not, we're banning it, we're not. It was like every 3 months they're banning it or something. So they finally came out with a 30%, I think, capital gains on crypto. So it's finally kind of like, if you're a country living in the 21st century, you're not going to be able to fight it. Crypto is here to stay, and blockchain is here to stay. And a lot of functions of traditional finance will eventually move on to hopefully decentralized blockchains. So you're just going to have to accept the fact that it's here. It's an innovation in the world of finance. You're not going to go back to the 20th century. Like if you're on an iPhone, you're not going to buy a Nokia now, or I don't know if anybody would. It's hard to do that. So so I think countries just have to accept it and find ways to incorporate it into their regulations. So we saw India doing that. So I think on a global scale, it's been a good year for crypto in general. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that. I would say that, I think I feel like we're on the cusp of larger adoption from what I've heard and what I've listened to lately. I think Kevin O'Leary was talking about it at the Bitcoin conference that, all this big money is still waiting to get in, because we're waiting for more regulation, which I know you're not a fan of. but at the same time, it's going to bring in all this more money. So, and like I said, like where my philosophy stands, I'm with you, but investment wise, Bitcoin's probably going to be the one that is adopted first by these mega players. So I feel like, yeah, we're on the cusp of a few things happening and getting some big players into the space. I'm just doing what I always do. I just dollar cost average on the days that are red when the markets are down. I just been mostly dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin and a little bit of Ethereum. I kind of have my bags of whatever else that I just have. I'm not really adding to my smaller bags at this point. Like I said, the block size war, that book I just read, really turned me kind of maxi after hearing about like the big blockers. The big blockers were like the more of the business guys. The guy, if you know, the author does seem like pretty unbiased and just speaking about how the big blockers think versus the small blockers, and all the big block forks kind of just kept forking over and over again. I'm sure you're familiar with Bitcoin Cash. It's what they eventually got to. There was Bitcoin Unlimited. There was there's a few different versions, Bitcoin XT. There's a few different versions of these big block forks, and the small blockers ideals is that like Bitcoin's going to be money for the world, and we're going to treat this like decades long strategy, and we should implement SegWit, segregated witness, and that will help things, but don't move right over to a new big blockchain already. So like I said, I've been maximalized a little bit. I don't have the staunch maximalism ego that you see out there on Twitter a lot of the time, but in terms of investment, I think a lot of big players are going to come into Bitcoin soon, and diversify on your philosophy, of course, but I think there's a good chance that it becomes the money of the world. And big news. I mean, the biggest thing to me was in the past year again was the crypto.com kind of coming to fruition, and just all the marketing. They bought the Staples Center in LA for like $800 million or something like that for the next 20 years. There's huge marketing there. So just kind of seeing some of these other coins kind of solidify their position in the market. And I don't for me, Monero, I like Monero. I just don't know. I never know what's happening. I feel like I always I have to get my updates from you or Doug Tuman when you guys come on the show, and what's happening there. Well, one other thing is I partnered with Bitfi. That it's the wallet that I use, and we gave it a couple of free hardware. Yeah, so
looks good.
Yeah, we gave it a few free of those, compliments of the team there at Bitfi, and we've announced them as our official hardware wallet, and they actually do support Monero as well. So that's cool.
That's good.
Yeah, you can throw it on there, and
that's good. I didn't know that. I thought it was just Trezor T. The T model.
Yeah, no, exactly. And Trezor, I mean, those bigger wallet companies kind of just own the market share, and they've been around, but now Bitfi's been around for 4 or 5 years. So, we feel pretty confident to recommend it to people. And like I say, it's got the support for all your major coins and the most desirable coins. And another cool thing is you can swap right within the device. So I don't have to take out my Ethereum or Monero or Bitcoin or Digibyte, whatever. Like you can just swap it right within the device to have like a DEX built right in. Yeah, so that's pretty cool.
That's really good. Yeah. So I have a similar feature with the Trezor T that I have, and it works. Its interface its software interface is the Exodus wallet. So Exodus works with Trezor T.
Oh, that's cool.
Swap within. Yeah, so you do the swaps within the wallet and stuff like that. I kind of started using Exodus when I first got into crypto. Of course, I use Cake a lot now, but for hardware, if I wanted to keep stuff on cold storage, then the swapping is also available within Exodus. But this is cool. It's good to have more options. It's really good.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a very sleek look.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, Exodus. I have some friends that use Exodus, and I actually explored it too when I first got into crypto, and then I just wanted to take it one step beyond and get my keys completely, like not even touching a computer whatsoever, just to be extra careful. So that's when I got the Bitfi. Like
Nice.
McAfee used to use it and tweet about it all the time and say how it's, he's obviously a big privacy guy, and Monero guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, but I was just talking to someone, and a new friend that I've recently made, and he's not concerned about privacy aspect of Monero because he feels like it can be achieved through Ethereum token swap or some other mechanism within Ethereum. What are your thoughts around that? Is Monero that far in advance when it comes to privacy, of your knowledge of beyond these other mechanisms within cryptocurrency?
Yeah, I don't think there's any other coin that can compete with Monero's privacy. They say that there's this coin called the ARRR Pirate Chain that has better privacy than Monero. I wouldn't know, but I know that it doesn't have the same level of decentralization for sure. You have probably between 80 to 100,000 people mining Monero at any given time around the world at undisclosed locations. So the most decentralized mining is in Monero, even much more than Bitcoin, because Bitcoin decentralizing is now sort of in these regulated mining farms and large companies that are traded on the stock market, like Red Hat and so on and so forth. And these are like large farms that can be shut down, if somebody did actually want to do that. So I think Bitcoin is one of the most decentralized protocols, but Monero is definitely more decentralized. So more security in that sense, but also its privacy aspect. I don't think there's, as far as I've understood, there hasn't been any coin that has come anywhere close to the level of privacy that Monero can do, that Monero provides. A lot of people claim that Lightning on Bitcoin provides some level of privacy, but then there have been so many privacy gaps in Lightning as well. And that is a topic that was explored actually not too long ago, because there were some false claims about Lightning made on what Bitcoin did. I'm not going to go into names, but and
Well,
then the Monero guys didn't waste any time to just break that whole episode apart and say, no, actually on this point it's like this, it's like this. But it's interesting to look at if you're looking into that discussion about the privacy on the Bitcoin layer twos versus Monero, and if it comes anywhere close to it. And the answer, I think, is unanimously that nothing comes close to Monero's level of privacy. So sender, receiver, and amounts are obfuscated completely on the entire blockchain, unless somebody wants to make their transactions visible. So
yeah, I'm still learning about the Lightning Network, and from my understanding, these transactions are not happen. They're built on, like, they're not happening on chain, right?
no.
No. So I mean, that's, to me, I do like the on chain settlement. So I like SegWit. SegWit seems pretty awesome, and a good solution, but I haven't. I downloaded a Lightning app a week or two ago, and I just wasn't sold on it. I didn't want to put my money on it. The app seemed cheesy and low budget. I think there's some work that needs to be done in the field still, but yeah, I'll continue. Go ahead.
What about strike payments? Because that's another thing that
Lightning,
is coming
yeah.
up in.
Yeah, so Strike isn't available in Canada, unfortunately. So I haven't been able to try that out yet. But if and when it comes to Canada, I'll be for sure in line to use it and check it out and put it to trial. But
Because they did a demo at the Bitcoin conference. Jack Mallers did a demo, I think, for strike payments. So I mean, honestly, if something like that starts working, where you can pay with Bitcoin using QR codes, but it reaches the merchant in the currency, the fiat currency that they use, that would be pretty sweet. Like, that would be a pretty groundbreaking thing. And I don't see those things as bad. I think that's a really, really good advancement for people who have crypto sitting around. I don't know how that works from the taxation angle. But so for example, if you're in a jurisdiction where you're not taxed on spending your crypto, then you're just happily spending it anywhere you go. I think that's a great option to have, like how you have these debit cards with CRO, and Binance has one, and so many companies provide them now. But allowing you to spend your crypto in fiat, I think that's a good first step. I'm not a purist in the sense like you have to spend crypto through crypto. Like I'm just, as long as you can spend it and utilize it, then it gives you an incentive to save in crypto and to then, okay, you're spending it indirectly, but then that opens up, that's one step closer to spending it directly. I think that's what I'm trying to get at.
Right. So you don't kind of subscribe to this digital gold, only hold,
no.
hold forever.
No. Oh my God. And I saw Michael Saylor, when I saw him saying something like today, I think I saw tweets that said, no, Bitcoin is not meant to send $10 million from here to Tokyo. It's meant to keep the $10 million from here to 2140. So basically what he's saying is don't ever send it or transact with it. Just sit on it. Like, it's just, I don't know. I mean, it goes beyond me.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'd rather, like, at this point, I'd rather spend my fiat dollars, but I also think down the road, people are just going to bypass fiat dollars and it's just going to be digital currency, right? So I think eventually folks are going to use Bitcoin for transacting. They're going to use Monero. They're going to use whatever they want. But yeah, I think, you and I kind of see eye to eye when it comes to that kind of thing. We're more about a free market, let people do what they want with their currencies. I think Bitcoin is a huge leap when it comes to hard money and being able to bring us to the next step of evolution and have this best savings tool technology, not all the bottom 50%. That's what I was going to ask you actually when I had that brain fart earlier, was about the redistribution of wealth and you mentioned the income disparity gap. And that's something interesting that keeps rising. And as from what I've learned in my studies is that when that keeps rising, nations become unstable. You have people rising up, you have protests because you have too many people with not enough money and a small cohort of people with all the money. And I saw a TikTok the other day. It was talking about the income disparity gap when Rome fell. It's like double, right? It's double in the States is double that right now. So like you do see a lot of factions and populism, and you got Bernie Sanders, you have Donald Trump, you have these clashing communities, so much going on there. And, just do you feel like, that's all caused just from the money printing, or how do you see, like, how do you fix that? Like, is redistribution of wealth the answer? Should you tax the billionaires?
There's no easy answer to fix the problem. The problem is definitely caused by the money printing and the inflation of the money supply. So I was reading this book called Capital by Prickett or something like that. I think a French economist, and it was talking about the staggering wealth divide that we see in the world today, and that people who are in jobs, they're just never, ever going to be able to reach the level of capital multiplication and compounding that people who inherit wealth have, So basically what he was saying is inheritance is way superior. Inheriting capital is way superior than saving. And back in the day, you could save your way if you invested wisely. And you used the real estate cycles and the gold cycles, and you used market cycles to your advantage, and you invested wisely and you were a saver. To some extent, you could get into that bracket of people. But now for the savers and for the working class to get into that bracket of people where, you know, your money works for you, you don't work for the money. It's almost impossible.
Mhm.
And it's getting wider and wider. So we're getting to the stage where there has to be, like, there won't be a choice left but for a revolution. And revolutions have generally occurred in the past when the food budget starts to exceed or touch 40% of a family budget or a household budget. That's really when revolutions have happened. I think the Arab Spring was happening sort of when food prices were reaching about 40% of your expenses. And you had the French Revolution in the past that happened when food prices were reaching 40% or 50% of your family's budget. So normally your rent shouldn't exceed 15 to 20% of your rent, or mortgage shouldn't exceed, you know, let's say maximum 20% of your budget, and food should be a much smaller amount than that. So we're getting to this stage, and with all this, I don't know if you've seen the news about the food shortages that they're talking about now. We're coming into
in which country, or just all around?
It's already happening in Sri Lanka right now as we speak. It's happening to some degree in Turkey, where there's a currency collapse. The other day I read a headline that said in Lebanon they have run out of wheat, or their last wheat shipment went bad or something like that. So the country is now without wheat. And you know, wheat for emerging countries is such an important thing. You know, that's where all bread comes from. So really, and some of the work that I presented in the Monerotopia was relating to how not having Russia provide for the world or export its commodities to the world is leading to a wheat shortage, because it's the world's largest wheat producer. And a lot of these African nations that are low-income countries are entirely dependent on, between Russia and Ukraine, they're entirely dependent on these two countries. And you see the chart and you're like, okay, there are countries that literally have wheat imports coming in from Russia mostly and Ukraine, and that makes up 100% of their wheat imports. That means these countries, where are they going to go if they don't have wheat coming in from these two places? And that percentage is really high for a lot of countries. So, and not only is Russia a huge supplier of commodities, but it's also a huge supplier of, agricultural commodities, but it's also a huge supplier of energy commodities. So crude oil, gas, you know, fertilizers that are made from natural gas, ammonia, urea, and agricultural inputs. A lot of the world's supply chains are feeling that disruption now, and I think going forward this year is going to be eventful and something to watch for. In terms of this agricultural food shortages, and when we're talking about revolutions and riots and people actually coming out on the streets and saying this is enough, you know, we're just running this rat race to never get anywhere. But I think that main piece of education is lacking in between. Like, people are not able to see, they're not able to close the gaps on like things like inflation. They're not able to really understand exactly what's happening. And a lot of them just comply and do as they're told, and they feel like they're still struggling at the end of the day, whether it's 2 jobs or 3 jobs, they're not able to make ends meet. So yeah, it's a tough situation for the world, and I think the only way it can be shaken is something drastic. We're getting to that stage. I don't think there's an easy solution for the kind of theft that has taken place through inflation and money printing already.
Right. These people at the top kind of own so much now. You know, I know as soon as you start talking about tax, you have, you know, all the libertarian communities coming out and up in arms over that. But yeah, I mean, traditionally that's kind of what happened. And, you know, I'm just hoping it's not a bloody revolution, and maybe it's Bitcoin is that big thing that happened that will maybe awaken a lot of people. I know it's educating a lot of people, and myself included, and you too. Kind of when you wake up to this new technology that has revolutionary impact on mankind and how we live, and the ability to put your money somewhere safe somewhere that you don't need, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, $100,000 to put down on real estate property. Real estate in my area is absolutely out of control. I'm living in Welland, Ontario right now, and houses, this is traditionally a small town. There's like 60,000 people here, and houses are going for $1 million, like the average home here. It's just absolutely wild where I am. But Canada is unique, and you can kind of, if you really want to, you can go north or you can go east or west and find cheaper property. But the places that people want to live most are just becoming completely unaffordable here. And Bitcoin,
I read about that.
yeah, it's absolutely, it's
Canada real estate bubble.
For sure. And yeah, so rates are rising now, just like the States. We kind of just follow in their footsteps for the most part. So Bitcoin is that tool, I think, that gives people, and I tell people, I call my friends and colleagues all the time here, I'm like, Bitcoin's your tool. You can get some of that, get some cryptocurrency, and you don't have to put a minimum amount down. You can put in $10 or $50 or a small amount of money to get you started, and something that will hopefully outpace this real estate. And they do call it a bubble, but there's such a shortage of homes where I live, because we're kind of trapped between America and the Great Lakes. So there's nowhere really to expand much in my specific area. So I don't know, people, and then there's people flooding from Toronto down here as well, because everyone's working remotely from the pandemic still, and that's kind of the way things are going. So it's become a really desirable area where I am. So a lot of people can't afford houses. It's gone absolutely bonkers, and it looks bleak for the younger generation. There's no real hope to even own a home if you want to stay in this area. You have to move, and I did it. I moved out west. I was in Calgary for 4 years to landed myself a decent job out there, and was able to transfer back and everything like that. But I had to leave the area, right? It's too competitive and dense in this area. And so my point was, I'm hoping Bitcoin is that tool for people, and we can revolutionize through that, and people can kind of catch on to this. But we need the governments to latch onto it and let their citizens do what they want with it, and rather than trying to ban it, or like you said, India is kind of back and forth on what they want to do with it. I'm gonna ask you a couple quick, just fun questions, and we'll get to the end of this. It's been just over an hour now, so
Okay.
you don't have to answer this one, but I'll put it out there. Price predictions
For Bitcoin
and Monero.
and Monero. I think that Bitcoin will go up in the next cycle now. I'm not seeing this bull cycle continue, or
Wow.
get anywhere close to 70K. Yeah. So
Bold
I think
statement.
we're done for this.
Okay. Wow. You just broke the hearts of my listeners. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm sorry.
We're all
I don't know,
hoping. We're all hoping. There's hope.
Yeah, like okay, when you say you're right about, there's a lot of money waiting on the sidelines. The hedge funds are all waiting to get in, and a lot have come in. So that I think over the last couple of years, a lot of money has come in that hasn't been in crypto, or has kind of exposed itself to the sector. But maybe until the next cycle, when they all come in together, we'll start seeing some price runs for Bitcoin. For Monero, I'm actually more optimistic. Maybe it's just the nature of my research and what I do, but there are a few reasons. So I feel that Monero's market share, not just on the dark nets, but on the white nets, just online markets, is growing. So CoinCards published its March report, and Monero was over 51%. So it basically flipped everything else, and it's now the most used currency on CoinCards. CoinCards is available in Canada. I'm not sure you're familiar with them, but you can buy stuff online, on Amazon, on basically a lot of stores, electronics, computers, mobiles, any gadgets that you would like, and plus a lot of other stuff that you could buy on online stores. So it's a very important tool to spend your crypto online. Other than Travala.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm familiar with CoinCards. I actually have a link on my website I've had on there for a couple of years for folks, because a lot of people ask me when they get in, oh, how can I cash out? What can I do with my crypto? I mean, it's you just convert it now back to your cash, but back in the day, I said, oh, here's an option. Here's CoinCards for you, right? Or there's a whole bunch of different things you can do with it. Do you have any books you want to recommend, or do you have any favorites?
I haven't picked up a book lately, but the last book that I read was it was about Monero. Let me pull it up. It was right here on my Kindle. It was basically understanding Monero or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think people, there's no battery. People should look into Monero a little more. I know I'm biased, or maybe I come across as biased. I just really do think it's a great, if people want to use it as a supplement to Bitcoin, but I think transacting, there's been a lot of mishaps with Bitcoin over the last year. We haven't gone into it right now, but the whole Canadian truckers, how they froze or how they confiscated and blacklisted the donation addresses and receive addresses. So things like that. And I think we're starting to see that when you're transacting, the privacy aspect and the fungibility aspect that's missing in Bitcoin is very critical. So many instances have happened where people's coin joined Bitcoin got confiscated by, or their accounts got frozen by exchanges and things like that. So I think everybody, if they can take away one thing from my discussion with you, is look into fungible coins, like, look into Monero, look into others. There are a few others. I'm not saying just look into Monero. I think Monero is the most decentralized one for sure, with the best technology, but that no one's been able to crack. There's like over $1 million of prize money waiting for anybody who can crack Monero's code. And it's just been sitting there for a few years. So it's a good thing because you have literally the same cash that you would use, except it's in digital format, in crypto format, and it's also scarce. So I think it's the most undervalued cryptocurrency in the world today. For what it can do and for what it is, it's not being valued at all by the market. It's somewhere close to 40 on the rankings. I think it's moved up a bit, 35-ish the last few weeks, but it's still kind of hanging down there like pretty low. So, pick up some Monero while it's cheap. I think it's really going to go up. I don't think 1,000 is a really big deal for it in the next 12 months. I think the next time I speak to you, we're going to be hovering around $1,000 Monero, and it's 200 right now. So
do we remember what the price of Monero was when we spoke? What was it a year ago? It was probably higher at the time because we were pumping, right? It was like, I forget what month it was, but we were pumping a lot right then and there. So it's probably around the same.
Probably around the same. Doesn't move much.
I remember I was listening to our last episode, and the Bitcoin price was in the 40s as well. So I think Bitcoin was around the same. So Monero was probably not too far away.
Another book that I really like, and it's an old one, but I think everybody should read Rich Dad. It's such a good book. It explains the fundamentals of personal finance in such a good way. I think it's a really good book to read. I was having, I'll just give you a quick, insight on what happened to me. So when I left my company, I had the HR person sit with me, and he was like kind of surprised, like, how you're able to just leave. And he said something about, and I said, well, I have a situation as well with my son that has made me a really dedicated saver, like in terms of saving, because I know I have kids, or at least a kid that's really going to be dependent on me. So it just made me accelerate my savings game. And I just optimize like everything. I don't buy designer bags or shoes, or, I could be doing silly stuff with my money, but I don't. I actually almost don't buy anything. So, but what I do is I invest. So, what he said? He said something like, oh, I made an investment too. I bought a car that's so-and-so, I don't know, some Mercedes. And I was just gonna, I didn't know what to say, but literally like I was, and then I said this, I was like, if you go down to the parking lot and you take a look, the oldest rundown car is going to be mine. And I was like, that's kind of why I'm able to do what I'm doing. So I think Rich Dad goes into a lot of these basic concepts that a lot of people think, like that guy in my HR was thinking that his car is an asset and that he actually invested in his car. He said, my investment was my car. And I mean, so you see that people don't have the basic understanding around what an asset is, what a liability is. So I think that's a great book for somebody who's looking to get into saving and finance and, moving forward in life with investing. It's a great book as well.
Yeah, it's funny. When I was living out west, I met a friend, and I don't know where we were at. It was somewhere where like there was free books, or he got a free book, and he said whenever I see this book, I recommend it to people. And so he gave me a copy of Rich Dad, and I've moved a few times. It got buried with some of my books, and I've listened to him, and I've listened to some of his podcasts. And I know he's for Bitcoin, if I'm not mistaken. He likes Bitcoin. I do have a copy of that book. I've been meaning to read it. I've just been obsessed with my pure Bitcoin books lately, but that's a very good recommendation, and I appreciate that. Did you have any final comments for us, or words of wisdom, or maybe if not, you can just let us know where we can follow you?
Okay. My final words of wisdom are to really think about the change that crypto can bring into our lives, and to think deeply about why we need crypto in the world today, and then look at the qualities of the qualities that the cryptocurrency should possess, and how that can empower mankind and humans and all of us. So have a deep think about those things. Would you want to be just hodling your crypto, or would you want a circular economy to develop and spend it? And I'm not saying now, but eventually there has to be a plan B. Imagine the currency fails. I had a podcast with the El Monero guys, and one of them was in Venezuela, and they were like, you take a walk around the block and your coffee has doubled in price, and everything is in the millions and things like that. So you're at a stage where currency is worthless.
I got a couple. I got 4 Venezuelan dollars right here.
Bolivars.
Yes, right? That's right.
Yeah, they became worthless. They're making handbags out of them and things like that. So what do you do in such a scenario? Are you prepared? Are you going to try and exchange a barter with people, or are you going to then start thinking of a currency that is spendable? And if you're spending it, are you going to get caught spending it? Because the authorities don't want that to happen. They want you to get on their thingy, whatever they want you to be on. So where's your wiggle room when things go bad? And I think we need to start thinking about our wiggle rooms. That's what got me into crypto, and that's the question I encourage everybody to ask. And finally, where you can follow me, it's Sardar on Twitter. That's pretty much where I am.
Nam, I appreciate your time. Always a pleasure speaking with you. I will definitely be in touch, and thanks again.
Thanks for having me on, Brad. It was great.
Thank you all for listening to the Halving Report podcast. Please like and subscribe to the show, share it with a friend, check out our show notes below for more about our guests and some sweet crypto coupons, and we'll see you back next time.